all the power? Is it them who got all of the money? Those who really know the truth. Super rich but out here looking hungry. You trying to be king of the corner? Why? Pulling the trigger. Judge start throwing numbers, now you wanna change. What's up with the switch up? Talking about killing, to the real killers come and get you. Now it's pouring out liquor for homie. R.I.P. under all of his pictures. You say it ain't fair. Go cry me a river. On time we deliver. For the people, it's part of the mission. It's part of tradition. Which part is you missing? And from the beginning, we've been focused on winning. Ain't no time for the bitching. Ain't no time for complaining. Only with the motivation, elevation, if you get what I'm saying. Then came up from the block. That's all I know. Headed to the top. That's all I know. Never gonna stop. That's all I know. This is how we rock. That's all I know. Talking about hard work. That's all I know. Talking about dedication. That's all I know. Talking about motivation. That's all I know. Talking about elevation. That's all I know. 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 All I know.
The Urban Conservative is a platform that my twin brother and I started. It actually came out of a study group that we were doing some years back as we were trying to become more politically aware and engaged. The urban part of the Urban Conservative means two things. One, it comes from the fact that we grew up with hip hop, we live like an urban culture, but it also is an acronym that we came up with that means understanding reality beyond all narratives. Now, some of the narratives we like to tackle are things like America was born in racism, police are out to hunt black men, and that systemic racism by and large is the major reason for conditions of certain communities in our country today.
Video obtained by WRAL appears to show State Auditor Beth Wood being ushered into a law office after she crashed a car into a parked car in downtown Raleigh.
Well, these pictures tell us a lot about the crash in downtown Raleigh involving State Auditor Beth Wood.
New video has surfaced of the moments after a hit-and-run crash in downtown Raleigh that police say involved Democratic State Auditor Beth Wood.
But it is now coming out that North Carolina State Auditor Beth Wood was charged with a hit and run in Wake County in December and will appear in court on January 26th. She did not return any requests for comments, but Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman confirmed that the charges include a Class 2 misdemeanor for a hit and run, but we're gonna keep our eye on this Beth Wood, again, North Carolina State Auditor, charged with misdemeanor, hit and run, leaving the scene of an accident, property damage, and unsafe movement. We'll keep IR on it. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Top of the Morning. Don't go nowhere. If you live in North Carolina, you may or may not have heard about our state auditor getting involved in a hit and run accident, being charged with a misdemeanor, and all that other stuff, right? But one thing I think is interesting is to see the NAACP turning on their own. That's interesting to me. We got a story coming out of the Rocky Mount Telegram here. This is the Rocky Mount Telegram. So it appears the NAACP president here, Mr. Blackwell, a young man you can see there, Cooper Blackwell, he looks like one of those libtard dudes. The Rocky Mount branch of the NAACP is asking for State Auditor Beth Wood to resign. I don't think she cares. Amid the aftermath of news reports of her being charged with a misdemeanor hit and run and cited for unsafe movement, specifically Blackwell said Wood has made a practice of targeting small cities and towns in North Carolina, led by predominantly Black elected and appointed officials, with claims of abuse of power and lack of transparency. Matter of fact, I'd like to have Mr. Cooper Blackwell come on the morning show one of these days. If anybody can get us a hold of Cooper Blackwell with the Rocky Mountain NAACP, because I'm definitely interested in having a conversation. I want to know more about this attack, why y'all feel like Beth Wood is going after Black folk, and I'd be curious to know if you think she's doing it because she's a racist. All I did was read the story that was on the screen. Did I make the comment that the young man looks like a libtard? I did. Because you're the chapter president of the NAACP. You're a registered Democrat. You just accused this lady of being a racist. But then what we had to do is we had to go and look because we got a message. This young man responded with a message to us on our Facebook post about the video. Cooper Blackwell responded with my phone number. Give me a shout, my brother said. So now, we reached out to young Mr. Cooper. My twin brother did and invited him to come on this show this morning, okay? We invited the young man to come on the show this morning because I wanted to hear exactly what Beth Wood did that was racist. I found out that he was talking about this group, Rocky Mount Concerned Citizens. This is the group that he's saying is chock full of white supremacists. So what did I do? Went in there and I said, let me see where the white supremacists are. A man reporting a local story. Somebody shared our show this morning. Anybody know what's happened at West Ridge? I knew the moment about Beth Woods. I'm looking for the white supremacy in this group. I'm looking for it. Where's the white supremacy in this group? I couldn't find it. I can't find it. I looked through the whole group. They actually even shared your black senator in this so-called white supremacist group. That's the group he was talking about was full of white supremacists. Now, what we had to do, we'll do a little digging. Just do a little looking around, connect some dots. So that episode is interesting. It went on for about 2 hours and we began to superficially connect the dots about what was going on there in Rocky Mount, kind of who's who and what's what. Now, after the episode, we began to get messages from people from the city thanking us for the coverage, and they let us know that what we did over the course of that episode was something that a local activist had been fighting for years to expose in Rocky Mount.
Everybody know my dad, Samuel Rock. He meant so much to this city, you know, and he pushed for the kids. You know, he made an impact on everybody. You know, he did so much for the city, and I you know, it's unbelievable because I never thought my dad was a superhero like he was, so he meant a lot to the city. He loved what he did. He loved exactly what he did. I wish he was here to see that. It meant so much to me because I knew what he stood for. I knew exactly what he stood for. So it meant a lot to me. My kids, his grandkids, it meant a lot.
Do you want to see your kids live and stay in Rocky Mount, or would you prefer them to move away and go somewhere else, or do you want to see your family stay here?
I want to see my family stay here. I love Rocky Mount.
So before we started covering the story about the Rocky Mount NAACP and their allegations of racism against the state auditor's office, Rocky Mount really wasn't on our radar like that. Now, my brother had done some voter education events back in 2022 in the city, and we knew a few people there, but come to find out, Rocky Mount has a really interesting past. Rocky Mount's story began in the early 1800s when it emerged as a vital railroad junction. The city's very name was derived from the rocky mounds that punctuated the terrain, serving as a guide for travelers and a gathering place for locals. The railroad's influence would go on to shape the destiny of the city as it facilitated the movement of goods, people, and ideas. The industries that flourished here, from tobacco to textiles, became the heartbeat of Rocky Mount. The city's growth was inexorably linked to the hum of factories and the bustle of commerce. As the nation evolved, so did Rocky Mount, finding its own rhythm amidst the backdrop of change. Rocky Mount's journey was not without its challenges. As the civil rights movement swept the nation, the city found itself at the crossroads of progress and tradition. Rocky Mount bore witness to the struggle for equality as its residents organized, marched, and spoke up against injustice. Today, the city of over 50,000 is facing a population decline, a rise in crime, and a challenging economy. First thing I'm going to ask you about is, what was it like growing up here in Rocky Mount? What do you remember most being a kid and growing up here in Rocky Mount?
Growing up here, when I was coming up, it was safe. Like, the kids didn't run the city. It wasn't crime. Like, old people used to sleep with their back doors and front doors open, but now the crime is it's out of control.
When did you notice things start changing here in Rocky Mount?
I'd say, like, close to like 10 years ago. It's bad. Like, we was losing, I'll just say our young black youth. We was losing them like once every week or more than once. One day we had like 3 murders.
The one day here. And so when people think small town, they think Rocky Mount. Like you said, they think safe. But you're saying that's not the case so much anymore.
No, this is called Murder Mount.
It's called what?
Murder Mount.
Okay, that's not a nickname we heard yet, but okay.
Yeah, it's called Murder Mount.
Police in Rocky Mount have made an arrest in a deadly shooting at a Rocky Mount murder.
And 2 homicides within a few miles of each other. 2 children are recovering after being left behind in the same car. Their 24-year-old mother and a man were found murdered in.
2 people were shot and killed in Rocky Mount yesterday.
Rocky Mount police say that a 15-year-old boy was shot and killed last night.
3 shootings in broad daylight in less than a month.
3 recent shootings in the middle of the afternoon in the last few weeks. One of them, though, was deadly.
Tonight, 2 men are charged in the death of a local high school athlete.
A man was shot and killed inside a home in Rocky Mount.
As well this afternoon about a deadly shooting in Rocky Mount.
The average age that people live on this side of town is in their late 60s, as opposed to the other side of town in Nash County is in their late 70s. So we had to figure out a way to try to curb that number. Now you'll see some newer homes. That's an end result of the flood of 1999. We can focus as a community on those little small things, tagging cars that are in the yards that, are not working and don't have the proper tags on them, making sure that the residents continue to keep their yards looking neat and straight. Those smaller things, if we can focus on those things, it'll only help crime as a whole. Some people think that those things don't work. Well, they actually do.
What are some of the things you love about Rocky Mount?
I think most of the people are real good. The leadership is bad. The workers in Rocky Mount get a bad rap, but I think that's probably misdirected anger. They should be angry at the leadership. And the council, they've been corrupt for years and been kind of a club that it had some greasy palms. And one city manager they hired was a carpetbagger that actually had been fired from other jobs for having her hand in the cookie jar.
So the more we learned about what was going on in Rocky Mount, a lot of the allegations of corruption were being directed at City Councilman Andre Knight. Now, one of the earliest controversies surrounded a challenge to his residency in Ward 1.
Voters first elected Andre Knight to the Rocky Mount City Council in 2003.
Mr. Knight has succeeded in making a mockery of the electoral process for Ward 1 for a period of 4 years.
He said he was moving there to run for office.
His attorney argues this is Knight's primary residence, and the 2 Nash County homes in question are strictly for his family's adult care business. Noticeably missing from this hearing, any representative from Edgecombe County. Officials didn't submit a written brief either, so these judges heard just one side.
Now, even though this residency challenge was dealt with in court, people said that he really didn't live at that address. So we went to take a look, and what we saw was a boarded up house that really didn't look like anybody lived there. Now, there were other allegations of corruption, including shady real estate deals, his and other city council members' relationships to OIC, but what's really pissing people off in Rocky Mount were the results of the 2020 investigation by the North Carolina State Auditor's Office. Do you think there is corruption in Rocky Mount?
Oh, yes. I'm surprised. I mean, it's not like... You think of city corruption, you think of Chicago, Mayor Daley Sr. and the dead people voting, but it goes on here. I mean, I don't know if dead people vote here yet, but that's probably in the cards.
Did you know that there was an audit conducted by the state auditor against the city of Rocky Mount?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you know that multiple city officials prevented the Business Service Center from attempting to collect $47,704 in utility bills owed by a city council member?
No.
Are you familiar with, or do you know anything about, or did you hear about the audit that happened with the city of Rocky Mount?
Yes. Concerning the light bill, I do. I know it was never paid. Bill is $47,704, and I guess because he's a city council member, he's not accountable or being held accountable for this bill.
The most powerful man in Rocky Best. Most powerful man in Rocky Best. Most powerful man in Rocky Best. Councilman Andre Knight.
How dare you come down here and challenge us?
This whole audit or an investigation, it was led by white supremacists. It was led by white supremacists to bring the state auditor in to overthrow the leadership here in Rocky Mount. That's an attempt to break the black majority, the black majority.
So one of the things me and my brother cannot stand, and it's almost one of the driving reasons we do the show and we do this platform, is this idea of race hustling. And a race hustler is somebody that uses the legacy of slavery and the legacy of Jim Crow and the legacy of the KKK to blame current situations and circumstances on. Now, we don't purport that there are no racists alive and that there's no racism, right? But to suggest in 2023, like that's being suggested here, that there's some systematic effort to hold black and brown people down is ridiculous to us. And every opportunity we get to dispel it and display the stupidity of it, we're gonna do that.
We are not fighting some disconnected incidents. We are fighting an institutional systemic problem. Given the racial history of the country, it was against the law for us to even read and write until 160 years ago. We were enslaved 246 years.
White supremacy transcends religion. I don't complain to the white supremacists. All of my messages are for the victims of white supremacy. All of my messages are for the victims of white supremacy. The white supremacists, the white supremacists, not the white supremacists, because you have white female supremacists too. White supremacists. Right. Let's be very clear.
What does it feel like to be?
I feel like a victim of white supremacy. I feel like a victim of white supremacy. I feel like a victim of white supremacy.
Institution all over this country and this city that don't want to see certain parts grow.
Grants for people to fix their houses because of discrimination, because of discrimination, because of discrimination. It was 120 years that we became the majority, I'm sick and tired of my own kind coming here blaming us. Blame those who've been here generation, who took food out of your mouth and your grandma's mouth, and you sharecropped and worked on their farms and couldn't get no house.
So from the outside looking in, to us it looked like a textbook case of race hustling. You've got a 20-year city council member who's always surrounded by controversy, now claiming that white supremacy and racism are at the root of the state auditor's investigation. Now, we couldn't find any evidence to support that claim, but we did find a statement in what we think is a pretty ridiculous interview from the NAACP.
The NAACP tells me last year's controversial audit of Rocky Mount was motivated by white nationalists looking to unseat black elected officials. But so far, they haven't provided any hard evidence to back that claim up.
We've seen this before. We've been there before. We've done this before, and we have the T-shirt to prove it.
Today, the NAACP of North Carolina released a statement calling Senate Bill 473 racist legislation. The bill, which still needs to pass the House, would make it a felony for elected officials in cities to use their position for financial gain. It was introduced in response to an investigation in Rocky Mount last year from State Auditor Beth Wood, who found that Rocky Mount City Councilman Andre Knight used his position to have the city write off more than $47,000 in utility bills over a 14-year period. Reverend Dr. T. Anthony Spearman with the state NAACP tells me the auditor was unable to satisfactorily answer his questions about the motivation behind the audit when he met with her last year.
From our guts, we sensed that there was something else occurring.
He now believes both the audit and the bill are racist. I asked Spearman if he had any proof to support this, and he said he didn't, but that Andre Knight had told him personally, and Spearman trusted him.
It's something that I sensed from my gut.
But so far, they haven't provided any hard evidence to back that claim up.
Now, part of what we do at the Urban Conservative is help to dispel some of these narratives. So we wanted to address it directly with the state auditor. What can you say about the actual claim that you did this, one, because you're a racist, or two, that there's some sort of politicization of your decision to investigate or audit a municipality?
So if you go to my website, you will see a list of cities and counties that we've investigated and had findings. I cannot investigate stupid, but when it becomes an abuse of power or allegations of wrongdoing, allegations of misspending money, allegations of misuse of assets or credit cards, then that's when I take it on. And so to look at me and say that there's anything racist about me, it's the only thing you can turn to when you know my audit is right. 100% irrefutable. So the only place you can go, she must be a racist.
In the audit, my name was not mentioned.
The audit found tens of thousands of dollars were mishandled, including $47,000 in unpaid utility bills, according to the mayor, by city